After World War II, the Russians and Western Allies started their Cold War disagreements over Germany. The Western Allies supplied food via airlifts to the Tempelhof airport, as the Russians had blockaded Berlin, controlling the land all around Berlin. Food stamps were not enough to feed the family. Berlin was divided up between the victors, with Wilmersdorf under USA control and Pankow, where Hugo and Margie lived, under Russian control. The Wiederholds found their way back to Berlin to witness the devastation. And to their apartment in Wilmersdorf, which had been sacked by the Russian soldiers, using the bath as a toilet. A good friend, Cornelia, an artist born in Lithuania, cleaned up the apartment. Cornelia submitted a painting of Jutta and Jörg to a New York art gallery entitled Starving Children of Europe. Hein recalled to Jost many years later that he resorted to selling carpets for a while after the war. When again employed, Hein would bring home his special lunch from work, Hassen Brodt, white bread with cheese, as he was diagnosed with stomach ulcers that later in South Africa turned out to be an appendix issue. Even this additional food allowance did not make it easy. The family, for example, would occasionally resort to red soup consisting of plums and flour. The German currency, the Deutsch mark, had become worthless. The black market was the only way to purchase anything, if one had the money or if it was at all available. Jost was the only one well fed. He loved Kartoffelpuffer, potato pancakes, fritters. Jutta developed scarlet fever. Being contagious, she slept in an isolated, darkened lounge. Thea and Robin sent the family clothes, including personally knitted ones. News about the war, work opportunities, and concentration camps for those living in Germany up to the end of the war emanated from the Nazi-controlled media.
Nazi Germany propaganda, the radio. 1923 through 1945. During the election of February and March of 1933, Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister of the Nazi Party, blocked parties other than the Nazi Party from transmitting political broadcasts. Its slogan became, "A radio in every German house." Goebbels ordered the mass production of cheap radios known as Volksempfänger, or the People's Receiver, in 1933, opening up new audiences to the message of the party. As Goebbels put it, the radio was the spiritual weapon of the totalitarian state that destroyed the spirit of rebellion. In 1935, it is estimated that when Hitler broadcasted his speeches on radio, he reached an audience of over 56 million out of a population of 70 million. Censorship on the radio led to laws against interception of non-German stations. Penalties included death. Even the mass-produced radios themselves were designed with a limited range in order to prevent foreign broadcasts. Even if a radio wasn't in reach, public loudspeakers spread the Nazi propaganda message in factories, public squares, schools, offices, and restaurants. Radio wardens were present to ensure people were listening to the major speeches being broadcast. By 1939, 70% of households had a mass-produced radio. In June 1940, the Nazis established a program for broadcasters to issue special reports about the war.
Only after the war were Germans made aware, with disbelief and shock, of what had happened in the concentration camps. Just remember that the concept of social media did not exist. Hein, to his dying days, could not accept such facts. Some dying of starvation, as did even those not in camps, yes, but extermination, no. The future prospects of victims of the war had been destroyed. This included Inge and Hein, both living through 2 world wars and physically not well with Hein's stomach problems and Inge's varicose veins and various operations together with the invisible scars, mental trauma. No psychological help available as the society did not understand such issues. Now embarked on another traumatic experience. Inge's passport provided an escape route. For the sake of the children, they decided to leave Germany, migrating to a country in the southern hemisphere where the German language is not spoken. Only Inge could speak in English. Hein and Inge, in secrecy, spread their possessions discreetly amongst family and friends. They gave a brass standard lamp to Eleonora Bulke, who married Siegfried Janke, both having studied agriculture, and later migrated to Australia with the lamp, leaving Charlotte devastated. Not only were the German borders strictly controlled, movement within Germany was carefully monitored, even beyond 1948. They placed their photo albums and a few possessions in 2 trunks to be sent to where they hoped to go. But Hein could not leave until he could prove that his next of kin were in another country. So Inge, with a British passport hidden for years, travelled under the pretext of visiting family in Stuttgart with her children, having to pass through Russian, British and USA sector controls. The children were told to remain stumm, not to talk to anyone, while on the train trip and the final approach to the USA-controlled Swiss border, June 1948. From there to Genoa, Italy. Financed by Inge's aunt Robin, they boarded in 3rd class on the ship Toscana, dropping off Italian soldiers heading to Eritrea. Crossed the equator with much fanfare, on to Durban, South Africa. The bubble burst. Apparently Jost was very gregarious on the journey once out of Germany. Very little of what happened in the Northern Hemisphere was remembered by Jutta and Jörg, and none at all by Jost. This was to be, because of 2 world wars, the 3rd generation of Theodor, Brinkmann and Wiederhold child migrations across the equator. The Theodor children, Thea 13 and Dora Robin 11, from Körschappen estate in East Prussia to South Africa. The Brinkmann children, Fritz Erich 10, Inge 7, from Johannesburg to Berlin, and now the Wiederhold children, Jutta 13, Jörg 10, and Jost just 6, from Berlin to South Africa. Inge's brother, Eric, fetched Inge, Jutta, Jörg and Jost from Durban and hosted them in his family home in Nigel. Eric and Nan already had 2 daughters, Margaret and Erica, and Nan was expecting a third, Alan, who arrived on the 3rd of November 1948, the same day of the year as Inge's birthday. Information about Eric and his family is covered by Alan in his presentation of their family history. To make things worse, in an overcrowded household, an in-house toilet facility was being constructed. Eric worked as a bookkeeper and was active in politics, supporting the English-speaking portion of the population. Jutta went to a local primary school where she was called jitterbug malaria. Hein was swindled when trying to, under the counter, transfer money out of Germany by a woman going to the USA. He got permission to leave Germany once his next of kin were in South Africa. He had also managed to secure a job in South Africa. He travelled 3 months later, 3rd of September, on the same ship, Toscana, which incidentally sank a few years later.